Is it that time of the year already? Rockman season just sneaks up on me sometimes. Every one of the Rockman games on the Famicom is someone's favorite, except for 5. Nobody likes 5. It's not that it's a bad game. I mean, compare Rockman 5 to any of the platformers we've been seeing lately, and it still stands out as one of the best. The thing that stands out for Rockman 5 and makes it nobody's favorite is that it's absurdly easy. Its reputation for being easy was so well known that the back of the PlayStation 1 version of Rockman 5 calls it the Easy Rockman. It has an odd combination of the bosses being incredibly simple and the weapons not being especially interesting. It pushes you towards not really using any of your tools. It's always been a problem with the Rockman series. You save your weapon energy now because you'll need it later. But in Rockman 5, you don't need it later. The plot of Rockman 5 is that Blues, the prototype robot built by Dr. Light, has gone crazy. He's causing havoc everywhere, and has even kidnapped Dr. Light. But don't worry, the manual tells you that Blues isn't the villain. Dr. Wily's actually behind everything. When you start the game, you have the now traditional choice of 8 robot masters, and in this case, it really doesn't matter what you pick first, because you'll probably be able to beat any of them really easily with your regular Mega Blaster. I always start with Gravity Man though, just because I like his stage. The gimmick of Gravity Man's stage is that sometimes there's arrows that will flip gravity when you pass them. On the stages, A jumps, B shoots, and Rockman's additional moves continue forward from Rockman 4. You can hold down and hit jump to slide, unless you're upside down on Gravity Man's stage, in which case you're hitting up. You can also hold down B to charge up your Mega Blaster to 3 different scales of power. When you reach Gravity Man, he stands on the surface opposite of you and flips gravity back and forth. Without a weapon that can shoot upward, you have to fire at him while you're rushing past. As always, defeat a Robot Master, get his weapon. In this case, Gravity Man gives you the Gravity Crush. It flips gravity upside down, and vulnerable enemies will fly off the screen. Now I'm off to Gyro Man's stage, where it's in the clouds with some falling bricks, and an elevator section with some spikes. Something you'll spot as you progress through the stages is that all 8 of the Robot Master stages have a Rockman letter. Usually they're a little bit out of the way and tricky to get. Gyro Man's gimmick is that he'll fly up into the clouds and shoot down at you, but since he's vulnerable to a weapon that hits everything on the screen, you can just mash the button and defeat him. He gives you Gyro Attack, which is just about the only weapon in the game I'd call useful. It fires outward, and then you can press up or down in order to make it turn. It does pretty good damage too, which makes it perfect for dealing with high up enemies or low ones. From there we're off to Crystal Man's stage, where crystals drop from the ceiling all the time, and you've got enemies that charge up crystal shots. Crystal Man's stage is also the home to the new M-Tank. Similar to the E-Tanks that refill all of your health, the M-Tank refills all of your health and weapon energy. Crystal Man was designed by a repeat winner of a Robot Master design competition. At this time, all of the Robot Masters in the game were submitted to Capcom through a contest held in a magazine, and Crystal Man was designed by Yusuke Murata, who would go on to enormous success in comics, and he's probably best known for drawing One Punch Man. Unfortunately for Murata, the contest this time did not have a golden cartridge as the prize. Defeating Crystal Man gets you the Crystal Eye, a large shot that will split into 3 when it strikes a wall and rebounds. It's not bad, but it's also not really great in most areas, since you really have to have walls to take advantage of it. From there I was off to Napalm Man's stage, which apparently takes place in the jungles of Vietnam. So maybe not the most tasteful choice Capcom could have used. One thing about Rockman 5 that makes it so easy is that the game is absurdly generous with extra lives. They're available just about everywhere, and they drop constantly. When I got to Napalm Man, I was only at about a third health, so I decided to just shoot it out with him, and he was so easy I still managed to beat him. When I did the refight, I used the Crystal Eye against him, but he really didn't need it. Napalm Man's weapon is a grenade, and it's not the worst thing in the world, it's just kind of there. Rockman 5 is a game that really strongly prefers aerial enemies, so any weapon that fires below you doesn't get a whole lot of use. Stone Man is up next. His stage features, well, stone. Really, they could have just called him Generic Man and it would have been fine. It's easy to miss the Rockman letter on this stage, but it is possible to re-enter stages you've beaten, so you can just run back to it and get it. Stone Man himself bounces around and collapses into a heap. Not the most thrilling of bosses. And his weapon, well, it's not the worst weapon in the series, because we've got something worse in this game. But boy does the Power Stone stink. It shoots out 3 stone projectiles that swirl around the screen, and you have to either be right on top of someone to hit them with it, or have them at exactly the right spot. Either way, using this one's not worth it. After that, we move on to Charge Man, whose stage is a train. As in the previous games, Rockman has his trusty dog Rush, who can be used to give him a little bit more movement, though they have changed. He still has the Rush Jet, which will travel fast in a horizontal line, but the Rush Coil now has Rush spring up with you, and you have to jump off him again. Charge Man is a train who charges. He's also annoyingly invulnerable at certain times. He demonstrates one of the more annoying things about bosses in this game. A lot of them are just programmed to move on top of you and sit there. And then they move at the same rate that you do, so once they're on top of you, you're kind of stuck. Charge Man gives you one of the worst Mega Man weapons of all time, the Charge Kick. With this weapon equipped, it replaces your slide with a little kick, and since there aren't any real enemies on the ground to kick with it, you don't have many opportunities to use it, and using it against the one boss who's vulnerable to it results in you tending to stop inside him and getting hurt. Wave Man's the next one up, and while you might think this would be a water stage, there isn't any swimming on this level. In fact, there's only one water section in the whole game. However, you can ride some bubbles in a way that would be reused in Rockman 9. And this is the first Rockman game with a vehicle section. You have to drive this jet ski along for a little while. While on the jet ski, you can't switch your weapons and you can't charge it. So just mashing B is all you can do. Dive Man splashes you with water and fires his little harpoon, but he doesn't have a whole lot more going on for him than that. His wave gun splashes along on the ground, you know, where no enemies are. And then finally we have Starman, because this game needed 2 space-themed robot masters. The gimmick on his stage is that it's low gravity, so here's your water stage technically. Starman himself has a shield that he puts around him and then fires at you, but the wave motion cannon goes straight through that while he's on the ground. Defeat Starman and you get his shield, which will protect you from one shot, or you can hit the B button again to fire it. You can't shoot it at different angles like he could though. After that, it's time for the boss stages, which aren't really that bossy. They require a little bit more skill and movement technique, but not that much more. Key to them is the Super Arrow, a special weapon that can do a little bit of damage, but really it's more valuable to ride on it and climb it when it sticks to walls. If you collected all of the Rockman letters, then you also get Beat, a bird that will fly in and attack anything that Rockman is dealing with. The bosses of the blues stages are technically vulnerable to Beat, but it's not much damage compared to your Mega Blaster. There are also a set of really boring enemies. Really some of the least interesting bosses in any Mega Man game. Once you've cleared this and defeated the fake blues, Dr. Wily finally shows himself, and it's time for his stages, which include, finally, the water. The most interesting boss here is this one where you have to shoot the posts to make them fire out and then climb them. After the obligatory Robot Master refights, you face Dr. Wily's ultimate weapon, a crushing machine that can't even hit you because it's so slow. After that, there's one more stage with a couple of Wily fights, but they're still really easy. Besides its reputation for being easy, Rockman 5 is still pretty well regarded in Japan. It's flagged as one of the technical showpieces for the Famicom, as Capcom was using a bit of software trickery to mimic the visual styles of more powerful systems. If I was going to play a Rockman Famicom game, Rockman 5 would be the last one I'd go to. Even with the problems that the original one had, it's still the original. While Rockman 5 feels like they were just getting tired of the formula. But if somebody said, which 8-bit Rockman game should I start with, I'd tell them 2 or 3. They're just better games. 5 is still a decent entry point for the series, though. It's just that, as the 5th game, it comes across more as an obligatory release than something that they were really passionate about.